Good evening, this is Eswatini TV News Bulletin at 8, read to you by myself, Notilesi Tole. First up, here's a look at our top stories. The Ministry of Education and Training has officially launched the country's qualification framework. The Ministry of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy, planted 250 trees in commemoration of the World Earth Day. The Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs has launched a Children's Protection Guide for criminal justice practitioners. And now the news in detail. The nation is being notified that those who still wish to forward gifts to His Majesty King Eswatini III for his 53rd birthday can still do so by contacting the Ministry of Home Affairs on 76038022. 76038022. The statement has been issued by the Minister of Home Affairs, Princess Lindiwe. The Minister of Education, who was represented by the Minister of Sports, Youth, Culture and Sports, Youth and Culture Affairs, Harris Matebulunga, has officially launched the Eswatini Qualifications Framework. The Minister says this framework will facilitate modernization of knowledge and skills creation and ensure that training is market responsive. The launch was held at Sibayeni Lodge.
The purpose of the qualifications framework is improving understanding of learning and qualifications and how they relate to each other, improving access to education and training, making progression routes easier and clearer, thus improving learner and career mobility. The framework will provide an understanding of national and foreign qualifications, therefore improving the understanding of employers, parents and learners of the value of qualifications. The Eswatini Higher Education Council Executive Director Amboni Dlamini says challenges that will be corrected include lack of transparency, portability, comparability and compatibility.
You have a qualification here and you want to pursue your studies elsewhere. You cannot do so because they do not recognize the qualification. This is a serious challenge when we have qualifications not dovetailing to each other. You are at a certain level, you want to progress and go to another level, but in the other institution they are not recognizing the qualification that you have.
The Minister, Harris Mate, says the framework will facilitate recognition of learning achievement attained through various avenues.
It will facilitate modernization of knowledge and skills creation and ensure that training is market responsive and demand driven.
Sustainable Development Goal aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Reporting, I'm Lungile Makakula with Mozimkonda, Matapa.
On behalf of His Majesty King Eswatini III, Her Majesty the Queen Mother, the government and the people of Eswatini, as well as on his own behalf, the acting Prime Minister Themba Masuku has expressed condolences to the government of the Republic of Chad in learning about the passing of President His Excellency Idris Deby on the 20th of April 2021. The acting Prime Minister says the people of Chad and the whole of Africa has lost a leader whose immense contribution to a stronger and united Africa is immeasurable. Masuku says it is Eswatini's hope and prayer that the Almighty God will comfort the family, relatives and friends, the government and the entire people of Chad for the tragic loss. The Minister for Agriculture, Jabulani Mabuza, has officially opened a deep tank at Maqhubeni in the Shiseleni region. Mabuza says Eswatini heavily depend on livestock. Therefore, the deep tank will be of great help in ensuring their livestock is healthy and save them from walking long distances to the nearest deep tank.
Speaking during the official opening of the deep tank, Mabuza commended the local livestock farmers of Maqhubeni who contributed 17,000 emalangeni towards the construction of the deep tank. Mabuza says it is the ministry's mandate to ensure the availability of resources that will ensure profitable returns and an efficient and sustainable livestock industry.
It is a very, very important facility. You can see for yourself. There is a toilet house, there is an office for the extension officer. Its purpose is just for the development of the farmers of this area. The cost for the facility at large, it's costing 240 2,665.17 We are very grateful as a ministry towards all the stakeholders that has contributed to make sure that today we open this facility officially.
Member of Parliament of Eswatini constituency Mduduzi Dlamini says the deep tank will bring considerable assistance to the Maqhobeni community. He says before, the closest deep tank required walking a 10-kilometer distance.
Ngalamafisha lana bekuhanjwa sigaba leside kakhulu nakungakayiwa kaZombode some kilometers from here kuyawiwa lebo matimatima about 10 kilometers kuya so ke lokho kule ngomo akusiyo impilo lenhle.
Chief Malambule Mdluli of Embilaneni Chiefdom thanked the Ministry of Agriculture for the construction of the facility.
Insita le hulumende asihlangabete ngayo itiko la agriculture yithi lisibusiso kakhulu.
The Minister for Agriculture Jabulani Mabuza praised government body micro projects which constructed the deep tank for being super responsive in the development of rural projects by the Tinkhundla system. For Eswatini TV News, Sifiso Nxumalo with Smuva Shongwe in Maqhobeni.
The Ministry of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, through the assistance of the Embassy of the United States of America, today planted 250 trees at Eswatini NCP at Jogolwago and Mkiweni constituency. The planting of the trees was in commemoration of the World Earth Day.
The total number of trees planted at the care point were 250. Among those planted, 30 are for human consumption. The Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilakazi, says, as the ministry, they could not sit and fold their arms while the world perishes. Thus, considered it wise to plant the trees.
Plant these trees because from these trees, the issue of combustion will therefore be checked because they are going to assist us in the
American Ambassador to Eswatini, Jean Malone, appreciated the ministry and the Mkiweni community for helping in conserving the nature by planting trees. Malone says she was inspired by what happened back in America in 1930 when there was drought and economic breakdown.
Volunteers, all of you, from the community, the ministry, and from the U.S. Embassy. Very well done. Thank you.
Mkiweni Member of Parliament Michael Masugu praised the Minister of Tourism and American Ambassador for finding it proper for the ceremony to be held at Mkiweni in Ngundla.
Kuthatha ithuba kubonga nje kubongela eMaswati sibongele kakhulu inkundla yaseMkiweni sidle sakadololwayo ukuthi ema project ayaqhubeka kuyinhlanhla ke ukuthi nakufika noma lo ambassador lebantu lebathi nentengo yenyanga batomele emavawo bese babuka indzawo la khona bangafaka sandla khona njengoba sebakwendile la.
Manzini Regional Administrator Chief Gicha Dlamini, who was also present during the ceremony, advised the nation to stop destroying trees by burning them, but instead they should destroy trees that are harmful to the environment by making calls so as to save the environment. He says trees are of health benefits since they provide fresh air for nature. They also help purposes, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Reporting for Eswatini TV News is
The Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs has launched the Children's Protection Guide for Criminal Justice Practitioners. This guide will be utilized to handle cases of children who come in contact with the law. Minister of Justice Palesha Kantu says children should be handled with warm hands regardless of being perpetrators.
The Children's Protection Guide for Criminal Justice Practitioners will provide a uniform application for the law of all cases concerning children. This guide will be used by police officers in solving crimes, social workers, as well as the courts of Eswatini. The Minister of Justice, Palesha Kantu, says this will enable children who are victims of abuse as well as offenders of the law to be treated in a way that will nurture them to become better citizens of tomorrow.
The ministry will now expect full and uniform application of the law in respect of all cases concerning children who come in contact with the law. At all stages of a case involving a child, the principle of best interest of the child is of paramount importance, irrespective of the offense the child may have committed.
On behalf of the National Commissioner of the Police, Senior Deputy Lydia Dlamini, passed a vote of thanks of the Ministry of Justice for such an initiative.
The guide has been developed with the sole aim of ensuring that proper procedures and channels are adhered to enable the effective implementation of the Children's Protection and Welfare Act of 2012, as well as other pertinent legislation touching on the protection and welfare of children.
UNICEF representative Afseen Parsi says children need a child-friendly justice system that will have a heightened level of protection, guidance and care.
May I also take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs for the long-standing partnership with UNICEF in ensuring that the justice delivery system in Eswatini is child-friendly, accessible and responsive to the needs of children.
1,000 copies of the guide and 75 charts were donated to the National Commissioner of the Police, which are to be used in the different police stations of every region in the country. Reporting for Eswatini TV, Nomalungelo Jele with Patizwe Msibi in Babane.
The Minister of Sports, Culture and Youth Affairs, Harris Bulunga, says the ministry has strengthened programs which empower the youth on starting businesses. The minister said this during an interview with Eswatini TV.
To make it easy for the youth to start businesses, the government set up the Eswatini Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund, which gives loans to them at a low interest. The Minister of Sports, Culture and Youth Affairs, Harris Bulunga, says due to COVID-19 outbreak, businesses by youth were affected, which have been funded by the fund. He says about 200 of them have been given funding and they have created about 400 jobs opportunities. The minister says due to the negative impact of COVID-19, 3 youth were given an extra 140,000 emalangeni in order to supply their customers. The minister elaborated on some of the programs which will ensure that youth businesses survive.
Every young businessman that we have funded has been assigned a dedicated mentor. Most of the applicants in the fund are from the Mbabane-Manzini corridor. We identified Chiselweni as one region which is lagging behind. So our youth fund team has already been to Chiselweni. They've covered a few of the areas around Chiselweni region, educating the young people on how to draw up business plans and how to cost the business and all the nitty-gritties that go hand in hand with the business plan, so that when we open the application period, then these young people will have business plans that can be considered and which can pass the stage where we do the scrutinization, and then they can also start their own businesses and make a meaningful life for themselves.
The minister says money was still available in the fund and the youth will be notified when to apply for loans. The minister says before COVID-19 second wave outbreak, 33 applications were approved and 29 of them have been given funding, which was nearly 2 million emalangeni. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Muzim Konta Mbabane.
The Kingdom of Eswatini is making significant progress in enhancing programs for environment conservation and restoration of ecosystems, as 5% of the kingdom's land now falls under protected areas. This was said by the Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilagati, as the world today commemorates World Earth Day.
On the 22nd of April every year, countries world over commemorate World Mother Earth Day. This year, this day is being commemorated under the theme, Restore Our Earth, and it is being commemorated at a time when Eswatini has embarked in many different initiatives aimed at restoring degraded aspects of the environment, such as dongas and wetlands. The Minister of Tourism and Environment, Moses Vilagati, says Eswatini is always looking for ways of restoring and keeping ecosystems intact.
The country, unfortunately, has suffered greatly when it comes to the dongas, and the reclamation program requires huge sums of money. Some areas have made some strides to make sure that some of these dongas have been reclaimed through community projects. We always encourage communities at the beginning of the year to contact the ministry so that we plant some trees in those areas. But also the issue of the wetlands is part and parcel of this, because some of those areas that are degraded, they require fencing, they require good restoration. We are pleased that when it comes to biodiversity, we have now moved from 3% to 5.2%. Our target is to reach 10%.
In his message for the commemoration of this day, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged countries to commit themselves to restoring the earth and to making peace with Mother Nature. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu in Babane.
The Minister of Health, Lizinkosi, says, besides taking extra caution against COVID-19, it's also important that eMaswati protect themselves from other diseases, such as the normal flu, because it is a threat to a person's health. The Minister says now is the time to take flu shots in preparation of the winter season.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, getting a flu vaccine is more important during 2020 and 2021 to protect oneself and the people around from flu. The CDC says vaccines have been shown to reduce the risk of flu illness, hospitalization, and health. The Minister of Health, Lizinkosi, says seasonal flu shots protect against the 3 or 4 influenza viruses that research suggests may be most common during the upcoming season.
Flu shots are vaccines that protect against infection by influenza viruses. They are one way of preventing a person from catching the flu. New versions of the vaccines are developed twice a year as the influenza virus rapidly changes. I'd say those that always take them must do so as winter nears, because truth is, we must be cautious of every disease, not just COVID-19.
She urges the public to continue to take the necessary precautionary measures against COVID-19. Reporting, I'm Lungilele Makakula in Babane.
The Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, has opened a call for the submission of proposals for a 2.4 million emalangeni or 150,000 euros funding assistance, which will be awarded to organizations which enhance the work being done by small and medium enterprises. This was announced by COMESA focal person in the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Portia Dlamini, during an interview with Eswatini TV News.
The Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, has opened a first-of-its-kind technical assistance funding facility established with support received from the European Union. Through this funding facility, each COMESA member state will be eligible to receive over 150,000 euros, an equivalent of about 2.4 million emalangeni.
Member states are going to write proposals, and if the proposal qualifies, the member state is going to be granted this amount of funding. And it is going to assist in supporting small, medium enterprises in accessing markets for their produce, as well as in improving quality in their produce, and also meeting the required standards in regional and international markets.
Meanwhile, Portia encourages small and medium enterprises from Eswatini to participate in this year's edition of the COMESA Awards for Innovators.
The focus is still going to be on SMEs, on the youth, and on women. Groups are also allowed, as well as institutions. So what is going to happen is that once that particular category has consolidated a concept that